Welcome to the second edition of World Cashew Convention. I am Chandana Shiv and I am from cashewinfo.com. Today with me we have Mr. Suraj who is from AEC-CI, Ivory Coast. Welcome to WCC, sir.
Thank you, Chandana.
Right now, what is the anticipated crop of IVC? How is the weather so far? And how do you predict the coming year, sir?
Yeah, so IVC on an average produces anywhere between 600 to 700,000 tons. The crop has been consistently growing over the past years. So last year IVC emerged as the largest producer of raw cashew nuts in the world with a production of 700,000 tons.
Yes.
And given the current growth rate and the weather patterns which have been relatively favorable for the crop production, we expect similar production of 700,000 tons with a slight increase. The only factor right now which is playing on the market and otherwise is the start of the season. Last year we had an early start of the season, but this year we anticipate that the season would be slightly delayed by about 2 or 3 weeks, which would see us have an official start to the arrivals towards the second or third week of March.
Right, sir. So IVC, and it's growing as the largest exporter and a producer. So how was the transformation, sir? What were the steps taken there?
Right. Initially, maybe about 10 years back, the production was below 200,000 tons. A large part of the growth was organic, and cashew was basically treated as a bush crop. It grew automatically without a lot of intervention in terms of organized plantation, organized farming. However, in the past 2 or 3 years, the government has taken very specific measures to encourage cashew as a national resource and encourage its exports. What have they done for this? First of all, they have encouraged good farming practices and good post-harvest practices at the farm gate level. So that encourages production. The second thing that they have done is quality control. And probably the most significant thing which the government has done is to implement a transparent costing and guarantee a minimum price to the farmer. Because earlier there used to be situations where the farmer used to sell the crop in an unorganized way below his cost of production. So the government has been very conscious of this fact and has taken credible and implementable measures to guarantee a minimum price to the farmer. So these measures have induced a certain kind of sustainability in the sector, and we anticipate that over the next 5 or 6 years, if the current growth rate continues, then Ivory Coast would emerge with the production of about 1 million tons.
Oh. And what are the contributions of AEC-CI for the Ivory Coast African market?
Yeah, AEC-CI is the association, the exportateur de Cashew en Côte d'Ivoire. Translated into English, it's the Exporters Association of Ivory Coast. So we are basically participating in the value chain to commercialize the export. That means the exporters intervene in bringing the produce from the farm gate to the factory gate, right? So the exporter basically takes on the role of a supply chain manager, of a risk manager and a capital provider. So the association, earlier before the association was formed, each exporter used to function as an island. He used to manage his own risk, and sometimes the risk management used to go bad. He used to do everything on his own. So ever since the AEC-CI has been formed, we are trying to organize this participation of the exporter in the value chain. So we participate with the government in order to get the fair price to the farmers, as well as structure the trade for the exporter. We try to speak to shipping lines to give us good logistical support. In case of international disputes and quality issues, we intervene and provide counseling to our members who are in problems. We try to participate. The basic intention of AEC-CI is to co-opt people in order to organize the exports of raw cashew nuts out of Ivory Coast.
Right, sir. So how do you foresee the coming season, sir? How is the price going to be stable or is it going to increase, and how do you predict it?
Well, it's very difficult because market is decides everything. But if you were to ask me to look into the crystal ball, I would say that there is a potential for the market to soften a little bit. However, given the delay in production, in the short term, I don't see any downside to the market. In terms of availability and in terms of quality, I think the crop is going to be fantastic out of Ivory Coast this year, because the government has taken very stringent and very good measures in order to control the post-harvest practices and farm gate practices and quality control. So in terms of quality, I foresee that Ivory Coast will probably give a very good quality this year. In terms of prices, the government has announced a minimum price of 350 CFA for the farmer. Last year it was 275 CFA. This year they have increased the farmer price to 350 CFA. So that should encourage further production. So if the government is able to, since the government has given a higher price and has taken quality control measures, we feel that the quality of the crop and the quality of the yield will be good. As far as prices are concerned, we know that there is a floor price of 350, and hence the if you add the costs onto the value chain, the floor is set at around 350 CFA to the farmer. The market is at a higher level. I have heard that there is competition for raw cashews from other nuts which are priced cheaper, so that should sort of restrict the upside on prices. I also hear today that the processors are working at parity or at negative parity, so their ability to take extra risk on higher prices might be restricted. We also have a situation where compared to last year, prices are around 20% higher. So 20% higher prices puts that much more working capital constraint on the buyer,
right,
because he has to have 20% extra capital to do the same volume. So that could add further downward pressure to the market. So while we see the floor at 350 CFA worked upwards to an FOB level of maybe $1,150, the cap of the market is probably where it is today at $1,400. So the market, unless something drastically goes wrong, if on a ceteris paribus basis, given everything else remains the same, the market should operate between a floor of $1,150 to $1,400.
Right. So what are the contributions of AEC-CI and what are the goals for 2016?
2016, we are participating with the government on various programs. The first program that we are participating with the government is in the rationalization and normalization of the export procedures. Ivory Coast is one country that requires a lot of documentation before export is done. So we are working with the government in order to create a digital and e-platform for all the documentation process. Right now, the exporter has to go to various departments to collect the documents required for export. So this year, the association, in coordination with the government, is trying to implement a pilot project so that all these documents can be available online. So if that project is a success, then going forward we would see life for the exporter becoming a lot easier. Then the other thing that the government is working on is in rationalizing the distribution of sacks. So we have taken on a system where the distribution of sacks is done according to the exporter's capacity, so that there is no over allocation or under allocation of sacks. So this should make life the operational life of the exporter much easier and much more convenient. So these are the two steps. Then we are also looking at negotiating with shipping lines for better connectivity, so that produce does not stay in containers for a long time. So our aim this year is very operational, to take specific measures that can make the operational and logistics easier for the exporter out of Ivory Coast.
So, as you said, shipping lines, is there a delay in transit time of shipping lines, and is it affecting the quality of cashews and stuff related to cashew?
Most definitely. It is one of the greatest concerns, because you see, the season is lasts for about 3 months. In 3 months in Ivory Coast and across West Africa, you have, from Ivory Coast you have got 700,000 tons coming in a period of 3 to 4 months, and across West Africa you have over 1 million tons coming in. So to manage this quality, one of the critical points is of course post-harvest treatment, in the port treatment, and the third one is the transit time. So we are looking at an ideal situation for us would be to have transit times that are maximum a month. So that would require shipping lines to provide us direct connectivity to destinations in India and Vietnam, which the shipping lines are not able to do. So that creates a huge issue in terms of quality of the product. Even shipping lines, when they commit 45 days, they have no responsibility, or they don't have commitment towards that transit time. There have been cases where, you know, the cargo has stayed in containers for 60 days, 90 days, which severely affects the quality of the crop, and it is loss of value for nothing. Neither the exporter is making money, neither the processor is making money, and neither is the shipping line. So it's a complete value loss. The only way to go ahead with it would be to get the commitment from shipping lines to give us direct call vessels.
Yes, sir. So what are you looking forward from WCC?
This year, I must congratulate the organizers. It has been a fantastic event. The quality of the speakers, the quality of the sessions, the topic chosen were very good. The conversation, the dialogues were very intellectually stimulating. I am taking a lot from this conference. Tangible, whatever I have taken is tangible and implementable. I have taken some ideas which I will definitely implement in my profession. Going forward, I think the best place to have the next WCC would be in Ivory Coast. So that's my next expectation. This interview, I would like to use it as a platform to invite you guys to come over and participate in the world's largest producer of cashews.
Think about it. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.